Hello, everyone, and welcome to Slash Film Daily for Tuesday, September 17th, 2019. On today's episode, we're going to talk about what we've been up to at the water cooler. This is Slash Film Editor-in-Chief Peter Sciretta. And joining me in today's podcast is Slash Film Managing Editor Jacob Hall.
Hello, hello.
Weekend Editor Brad Oman.
Hey, that's me.
Senior Writer Ben Pearson.
Hey, what's going on?
And writers Hoai-Tran.
Hey, everyone.
And Chris Evangelista.
Hello, folks.
Welcome back, Chris.
Thanks.
Yeah. Okay, let's jump into it. I have a front heavy thing, so I'm going to be talking for a little bit here, so I apologize. But what I've been doing, this past week I went to Halloween Horror Nights in Universal Studios Hollywood. I talked last week about going to Halloween Horror Nights in Universal Studios Orlando, Florida, and it's in Florida, I said everything's bigger and better. I was expecting this is the first time I've gone to both in the same year, and I was expecting going to Hollywood that I was going to be very disappointed coming off of Florida, but I was actually quite pleasantly surprised at how I mean, Florida is better. I'll say that straight up. But it is interesting to see how different creative teams tackle the same properties. Like, both did Stranger Things, both did Ghostbusters, and if you watch those mazes, I'll link to them in the show notes. Like, they did them in different ways, even though like say Ghostbusters, for instance, presents the story of the first Ghostbusters movie in chronological order. Like, there's different scenes and different scares and different how they use illusions of ghosts and technology, and how they bring Slimer to life. Like in Orlando, there was a point where they used this almost like Pepper's ghost illusion, like to use a projection down a hallway, and then the same one in Hollywood was actually like a life-size Slimer maquette that was actually coming at you. So it was very interesting. I will say this, I have a new camera. I think I've talked about that on the podcast, and it doesn't have stabilization. So I've been looking for solutions to that. I got a gimbal, the Zeebill Lab gimbal, and this is one of those things. It's almost like a Steadicam, so you put the camera on top of this thing, and it basically adjusts for shakes and jitters and whatever, and it basically makes the footage look like you're gliding on air. I decided to use this for the first time at Universal Studios Hollywood during Halloween Horror Nights, and guys, this was a mistake. This thing basically weighs another couple pounds in addition to my heavy camera. So by the end of the night, my arms felt like they were going to fall off. Like, I was in so much pain. There was I want to say maybe an hour into the event, I looked over at my friend Jeff, and I was sweating, almost sweating to the point I was when I was in Orlando. I looked at my friend Jeff, I was like, is it really hot out, or is it just I'm out of shape? And he's like, you're out of shape. So,
well, was it worth it for the footage, at least?
I think the footage looks incredible. I'm not sure if any of you guys have watched that video, but the footage looks amazing. I'm just not sure if it's worth it.
Peter, this is an exercise. Like, every time you go out now, you're working out. It's great. Keep it up.
Yeah, but well, you out there listening to the podcast, check out the video. Tell me if it's worth it, because it feels like I'm at a point in this vlogging journey that I'm in the battle of, do I want it to look a lot better, or do I want it to be easier and be more versatile and being able to capture, more things in the moment? So it's like a battle of those two things. Okay, I'll move on from that. But I did also go to Disneyland this weekend, and to experience Halloweentime, which is my favorite time at Disneyland. They deck out all of Main Street and all of both parks to celebrate Halloween. Yeah, yes, I know it's September, but it happens early in theme park land, and they also during this time have one of my favorite versions of a ride. So in Disneyland, some of the rides they will re-theme for Halloween. So Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout, which is this re-theme of Tower of Terror. It's basically, generally, it is you being recruited by Rocket. The Guardians have been trapped in the Collector's Museum with all his other things and monsters and whatever, and you have to break in and help him, break out the Guardians of the Galaxy. And by the spoiler alert, for the end of that ride, you end up breaking out everything in the Collector's Museum, and like all his creatures and stuff are running wild as you're like exiting through the gift shop. The cool thing is, during Halloween, they do a thing called Guardians of the Galaxy Monsters After Dark, which only starts at dark time. So it starts at like 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. And it's basically a sequel to the Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout. So basically you are entering the Collector's Museum, but the monsters have already escaped. So the lighting's like ominous, and there's like flashing lights and like projections of like creatures like running about. And you're basically, you have to go back in there because the Guardians did escape, but Baby Groot or Little Groot, Brad, what is the distinction? Is Baby Groot the one that's in the pot, and then the walking one is Little Groot?
I mean, yeah, the one that's in the pot is definitely Baby Groot, but I think that a lot of people still refer to the one that's like a little kid as Baby Groot too. See,
I said that in the video, and then someone like got really mad at me for calling the little walking Groot thing Baby Groot. But anyways, Baby Groot or Little Groot has been left behind in the collector's warehouse. So you have to go in there while all these monsters are running around and break him out. It's basically the same ride with some heavy metal, and it's just a lot. I don't know. It's a little bit more adult and a lot more fun. So I did make a video about that. I'll also link that in the show notes. And I'm also going back to Disneyland tonight, guys, because every Halloween time they do these like nighttime Halloween party events, which are these extra ticket events. And I'm going to this thing called Oogie Boogie Bash, which is the first time it's happening in Disney California Adventure. I think they programmed it over there because they thought Star Wars Land was going to be so busy. So they were like, let's put everything over in the other park. Little did they know. But I thought HT might be interested in this. So at these parties, they have a lot of like weird characters that are not normally out in the parks for meet and greets and photo ops and stuff like that. And I looked at the list this year, and they are actually, for the first time ever in Disneyland, doing a meet and greet with some of the characters from the video game Kingdom Hearts.
I was actually going to ask that. That's amazing. Which characters do you know?
I do not know, but I will take a picture and I will send it to the Slack channel tonight when I see them. But yes.
And it's a fun fact that Oogie Boogie, in the first Kingdom Hearts game, you play in Halloweentime and you get to fight against Oogie Boogie, and it's great. So that's why I thought immediately, I'm like, oh, I wonder if Kingdom Hearts will be there. So it's cool that it is.
Yeah, I know they've done like those characters like overseas, like in Tokyo and stuff like that, because obviously it's way more popular over there. But I think this might be the first time it's in Disneyland, so it's crazy. I'll talk about that next week. Lastly, I know I've been going way too long about theme parks and stuff, but my visit to Disneyland Resort this weekend got me thinking. I love Christmas season. We have like this huge Christmas tree. We have a droid tree. We have tons of ornaments, and we usually erect those things right after Halloween, so in November. So our Christmas season basically has the same calendar as Disneyland's Christmas season, and we just love celebrating it and stuff like that. And we have some Halloween decorations. And while we were at Disneyland has this thing called the Halloween tree, which is inspired by the short story by, oh my God,
Ray Bradbury.
Yeah, Ray Bradbury, yes. Who actually helped with Epcot, and it was a friend of Walt Disney and stuff like that. Anyways, so I've got the inspiration. I think we were gonna get a Halloween tree and get some like Halloween decorations and ornaments to put on it. I know Jacob and Chris, you are big people that like to celebrate Halloween. Do either of you have a Halloween tree, and why not?
I do not have a Halloween tree because I have animals, and policing a Christmas tree for 1 month a year is already a huge pain in the butt.
Yeah, no, I do not have a Halloween tree. In my old apartment before we moved to this house, I had an entire room that was like a Halloween room, but I don't have that now because I'm an adult. I'm a grown man.
I have a
didn't even know
Halloween.
there were.
I have a
Go
Halloween
ahead.
tree in my front yard. And like during the rest of the year, it has leaves, but around Halloween time, the leaves fall off, and so it looks dead.
It's dead. But
I
do
didn't
you
even
put
know there was such thing
It's a
as
normal
Halloween
tree.
trees.
It's a normal tree, Peter.
no? But I'm talking about decorating with like orange and purple lights, and it like
Is
being.
this a thing?
I don't know if it's a thing. I
Who
mean,
has time for this? I barely have time to wake up in the morning. I don't have time to put up trees in my house. Get out of here.
That's the title of the next James Bond movie. Is No Time for Halloween Trees.
Okay, that is all for me. Jacob, what have you been doing this week?
I'm planning for Fantastic Fest, which is my favorite week of the year, and the irony about this is it is the most relaxed festival in the world to cover and to attend. There are no lines. You do all your film selections on the website. You kind of go with the flow. We're not even like planning our coverage extensively until we're on the ground. That's because we can literally sit at a bar and like all be in the same place. And literally, I'm going to have the easiest 8 days of my year at Fantastic Fest. But planning for it and planning for the easiest fest of the year means me stressing out. So I am currently just going wild in my brain space, trying to prepare for the easiest week of the year. So I will be gone for the bulk of this weekend, next week. But I'll come back with reports from a whole bunch of really cool movies and hopefully lots of wild stuff, because it really is a pretty interesting week.
Cool. Okay, Chris, what have you been up to?
I just got back from TIFF. Well, not just, but a few days ago. And I had a great time, and we actually did a whole TIFF podcast. I won't talk too much about TIFF, but I love TIFF. It's my favorite festival. I actually went to like a few parties this year, which I don't normally do, and I saw famous people like up close, which is always weird because they're always very attractive, and it makes you feel like 10 times uglier when you're like in their presence. Although I will say, I went to this one party and John Hamm was there, and he was dressed really shabbily. Like I was dressed better than him. And I was like, come on, John Hamm, what are you doing? He had like a sweatsuit on. It was like, come on, put some effort into it. But other than that, I had a great time. And now I'm getting ready to go out again. I'm also going to Fantastic Fest, and this is actually my first year going, and I don't really know what to expect. I'm looking forward to it, except for the flight, which everyone who listens to the show knows I'm very bad with flying. And even though I fly more and more every year, my fear of flying does not get better. It somehow gets worse. And I don't know what the solution is. I'm just going to have to eventually find some sort of like therapist who specializes in fear of flying, because it's bad. And I'm, as much as I'm looking forward to getting out, to Austin tomorrow and taking part in Fantastic Fest, the thought of having to get on a plane, it's like a 3-hour plane ride for me, is filling me with severe dread. So it's a mixed blessing. I'm excited, but I'm also very terrified. So we'll see how that goes.
You need to find a hypnotist who can hypnotize you and
Right.
take away your fear of flying.
What I want is, how like if you go, you get surgery and they put you to sleep. I want that. There should be like that guy on the plane. He puts the mask over your face. He makes you count backwards from 100, and you're out like a light, and then you wake up as the plane is landing. That's literally what I need. And until that exists, I don't know.
That's how you get incepted, though.
Yes,
Yeah, that sounds like the
fine.
beginning of either a thriller or horror movie, which
Look,
Chris, I'm sure, wouldn't mind.
Yes, I'm fine with either of those as long as I don't have to be aware that I'm on a plane that is thousands of feet in the air.
Huh. Okay, well, I think we've learned from your TIFF experience that if you're famous and charming, you don't have to try as much. You can just slide by in life, right? Like John Hamm.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Ben, what have you been up to?
My parents came out to visit for the first time in a little while, and we had a chance to see John Mayer at the Forum, which is great. My family has been a big fan of John Mayer's music for a long time. I sort of went back in my mind and I realized that the first time I ever saw him was 16 years ago with my dad, when I was in high school. And it was just cool to see him again with my dad, even though my parents had like separate seats from my wife and I, because we had bought our tickets early, and then they decided to come out, and they were on a vacation in Hawaii and decided to just stop over for a couple days back, before they headed back to Florida to hang out with us for a little bit, and realized we were going to the concert, and they're big John Mayer fans too. So we all went together, sat separately, but it was still an incredible concert. And he played Covered in Rain, which is a song that's like a real deep cut that wasn't even really on any official album, but I knew of because I was a big fan from way back in the day. And a lot of great stuff, and you can check out his Instagram for more on that.
I saw that he played Free Fallin' too, which is probably like one of the best covers ever.
Brad, I have to tell you, I like teared up when I heard that live, because it's an incredible cover, and he told this story about just how much that song means to him, and how, when he was a kid, he heard stories, he heard about California, and it was one of these places that sort of calls to you in pop culture, and Tom Petty's California specifically was like such an evocative thing for him, and to hear that song done that beautifully, acoustically and all of that stuff at that concert was just, a really special experience. So very, very good stuff. If you can go see John Mayer, I would highly recommend doing that. He's a terrific musician, and honestly, I think like one of the best living guitar players in the entire world, and as somebody who is not very good at playing guitar, but certainly appreciates great guitarists, that just adds an extra level of enjoyment for me. So
the last time I saw John Mayer was also when I was in high school, and I went with another friend of mine who is a big John Mayer fan, and this was back when Maroon 5 wasn't super big yet, so Maroon 5 opened for John Mayer.
Oh wow.
And John Mayer did the coolest thing. Whoever the other guitarist was in his band came up behind him and reached in front of John to play John's guitar, and John reached behind him and played his guitar backwards.
Wow.
And it was amazing.
That's very cool. I've never seen him do anything like that. I wonder if something like that's online somewhere. I'll have to check YouTube, scour the internet, see if I can find something like that. It's pretty wild. And then the next night, my wife and I had the chance to see Middleditch and Schwartz, which is Thomas Middleditch and Ben Schwartz, who are two actor comedians. You've probably seen Middleditch he's the lead of the show on HBO, Silicon Valley, and Ben Schwartz played John Ralphio in Parks and Recreation. Those guys are like two of the best improvisers, I think, ever. And they have just a duo basically where they go to the Largo theater here in LA and they perform for like an hour, and it's all improv, it's all on the spot. It's a once in a lifetime show that'll never happen again because it's all based on stuff that they're making up in the moment. And there's no point in like recounting any of the things that happened there because it's all like very you had to be there kind of thing. But the shows that we went and saw, or the single show that we went and saw, was part of a 2-set show that they were doing to raise money for the relief for the Amazon rainforest. So they raised like $13,500 for that. So it was pretty cool. And the show was so funny and so great that like as soon as we walked out of the theater that night, we immediately bought tickets to see them again when they come back in October. So if you're in Los Angeles and you have not seen these guys, it's well worth the like $30 or whatever it is for the ticket prices, because they're hilarious, and I've not laughed that hard in a long time.
I've not seen enough improv shows. Like, I'm just not like an improv guy. I've only
Peter,
seen
you should go. I'm telling you, it's so funny.
Well, I have a question here. Like, obviously, like comedians write jokes and stuff like that in advance, but improv is like a different thing. Mm-hmm. Like, is there the possibility that there's some improv comedians that like have things banked and are looking for points in the set to pull something out that they have pre-written? Like, Brad, is that like a thing?
Not commonly. No, it's not impossible. Like there's always sometimes you have something that like you've thought of before that is funny that may pop into your head at a given time because it just so happens to fit in a scene. But the nature of improv is such that, like, especially if you're doing something where you're getting suggestions from the audience, like that it would be a detriment to the sketch, the scene, whatever it is itself, for any comedian to try and shoehorn something pre-written into anything like that. And because it's really easy to tell, because improv is so natural and authentic in the way it just comes out that you would be able to know something was written. But there are some people who they're just so good at coming up with stuff on the spot, and they're just so in tune with the construction of a joke and where to take things that it feels like it easily could be written. But all these guys are just really good at improvising.
See, when someone's good at something, I always like they're cheating somehow. They must be cheating.
What a terrible way to live life.
Okay, let's move on to what we've been reading. And of course, this is Jacob's segment of the week because he's the only one that reads stuff now. Jacob, what have you been reading?
Oh man, I feel bad because I'm not reading a book right now. I'm between books, so I'm going to talk about SCP, which stands for Secure, Contain, Protect. It is an online wiki project. The idea being that the SCP is an international organization that houses, protects, tries to destroy all the various, fantastical, evil, cursed objects from around the world. And every couple of years, I fall into an SCP hole. I go on there and say, oh, I wonder what's new on SCP. And I just fall in there for hours and hours and hours, clicking links and reading stories. And the fun of it is that it's essentially a big found footage website where each entry, each object or creature or person who's on file here, it's written as a government document, like written in the form of someone who's working in bureaucracy trying to file away information about this cursed object or this cursed person or this evil monster. And so it's information about where it's stored, where it's kept, how you keep it from causing trouble. Is it super dangerous, or is it only going to cause trouble if people provoke it? And some of them are really, really complex and go on for thousands and thousands of words. Some of them are like one paragraph long. Some are incredibly chilling and terrifying. Some are really, really funny and like disarmingly hilarious. Some are really cheesy and like go up their own butts in ways that I personally don't enjoy. I tend to like the ones that are a bit more direct and a bit more creepy. But when you click on an SCP article, you never know what you're going to get. And it's really fun to sort of get lost in this fake world of cursed objects and monsters and people with powers. And some of them are just so good. And it makes up for the fact that some of them are so not good. And if you just look up SCP online, you'll find it. And they do a pretty good job of curating it. You have to go through a pretty extensive trial process to be able to add to the wiki. So I very rarely have found articles in there that are just straight up trash. Even the ones I don't enjoy clearly have people who enjoy that style of writing. But as far as like grand experimental genre projects go, it is a very interesting thing. It's been on for a long time now. And I'll probably read it obsessively for the next few days, then fall off for a year, and then go back into it, sometime in 2020 again.
Sounds like the way to do it. Okay, let's move on to what we've been watching. We have no crossover this week, so I'll start things off. I only watched one thing this week. I found out, I forget how, but Kitra had never seen What About Bob? So I was like, oh, we have to watch this. And it was only available to rent on iTunes. It wasn't like, I think if you have Cinemax, it's on Cinemax On Demand, but we don't have Cinemax.
Was it because of the cross stitch that I bought over the weekend?
Maybe? I don't know. What cross stitch did you buy?
It's What About Bob? It's from the Gallery 88. It had a new show with those like little mini cross stitches that have movie quotes on them, and it has a little goldfish in a jar, and it says, "I feel good, I feel great, I feel wonderful."
Oh, that's awesome. Maybe it was because of that. I don't even remember, to be honest. But she had never seen it, so I had to put it on. I haven't watched it in years. I remember loving this as a kid, and this movie came out in 1991. It was directed by Frank Oz. It stars Bob as this, Bill Murray as this guy named Bob, who basically he has every single psychological disorder. Like, he can't touch anything. He can't leave the house. Like, he just has so many problems. And he gets assigned to this new to a psychologist. I'm not even sure. Richard Dreyfuss, basically. And Richard Dreyfuss he meets with him. He's going on vacation for a month, and Bob, obviously needs help at every given hour. So Bob finds a way to find where he has gone on vacation and basically hijack his summer vacation. I'm sure everybody's probably has everybody here seen What About Bob?
It's been a long time, but I have seen it.
Yeah.
I've actually never seen it.
It's so good.
I know another movie that I've missed because I think it came out probably when I was really young.
Yeah, 91.
I was not born yet.
Yeah, it's directed by Frank Oz. It has a great '90s score, like a classical like '90s score. And you know what's interesting about this is like it is a dark comedy, but it is a comedy version of a thriller. Like this plot could easily be remade with this like guy, you know, with Richard Dreyfuss being the protagonist and this crazy guy kind of hijacking his summer. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm kind of, it's kind of weird that it was never made after the success of this, because I feel like that would have been the way to do a sequel, is to do like a spin-off alternate version. I somehow didn't realize that the son in this movie is the kid from Hook, and he's also in Can't Hardly Wait and a bunch of other stuff too.
Charlie Korsmo.
Yeah. This is a Touchstone movie, so is this going to be on Disney Plus? I should have looked. We had an article today, which I'll link in the show notes, that lists everything that is going to be on Disney Plus. Did anybody see What About Bob on there?
I did not,
No.
but I there were a lot of movies on that list,
Yeah.
so I could have just overlooked it.
Because I'm wondering how much Touchstone Pictures, like which was owned by Disney, is going to be like on that service. It's also
there are definitely some on there.
Yeah. It's also worth noting, something I didn't notice when I was younger is like the whole climax of this movie is Good Morning America is coming to do a piece on Richard Dreyfuss's character. And I didn't realize at the time, but ABC is owned by Disney, and it's this big, you know, cross synergy thing. Richard Dreyfuss is just so good when he's like at a 15 out of 10 in terms of like, you know, just him just having outbursts and stuff. And Bill Murray is just, I don't know, for me, I know Bill Murray has some great performances. This is like one of my top 5 Bill Murray performances, but this movie has the most bizarre ending, and I hate to bring it up because HT hasn't seen this movie, but it's one of these weird endings. Like in the 80s and 90s, they had these endings to movies that like almost like are not an ending to the movie, but then they have like upbeat music and it like ends, and it's like one of those movies. It's so weird. But I don't know, if you've never seen What About Bob, I would check it out. It's really enjoyable. It's stupid, it's silly, but I think it's fun for both kids and adults. Jacob, what have you been watching?
I watched 2 very different genre movies. The first is Tigers Are Not Afraid. It was a big hit at Fantastic Fest 2 years ago, where I missed it and regretted it because everybody kept talking about what a profoundly moving experience it was. And then it kind of sat quiet and dormant for a few years. But Shudder, the streaming service, picked it up. It is now streaming there. I caught it in the theaters where it's playing a limited run. This is a Mexican film from director Isa Lopez, who also wrote the script. And I guess to sum up what it is, there's shades of Guillermo del Toro in here, particularly Devil's Backbone and Pan's Labyrinth, but it's also a lot of Grave of the Fireflies, the animated film about orphans surviving after the firebombing of Tokyo. And the gist here is that it follows a group of kids whose parents have all been kidnapped or murdered by drug cartels as they live homeless in the streets of an unnamed Mexican city. And it essentially is literally a fairy tale. It wears on its sleeve. There's magical realism at work. The main character, a young girl, believes she has 3 wishes that can come true in ways that she does not expect. There are ghosts. There are urban legends. And the magical elements creep in from the background as the movie focuses on the forefront of these kids trying to survive, trying to get by in a world where their parents aren't there and where the adults literally want to kill them because they're caught in the middle of cartel drug wars. And it's only 82 minutes long, clearly made on a low budget, but it is a beautiful movie. I cried a bunch. It's spooky, but not necessarily scary. And it is just this perfect blend of the magical and the real, and using that magic to really examine, a time and place. I mean, I'm reminded of Pan's Labyrinth, how it used, the fantasy setting to examine, the historical time of, fascism in Spain during that time period, whereas this is using a similar tone to explore the drug wars and the kids who are left behind and orphaned by it. And the entire time I was watching this, I kept thinking, man, HT needs to watch Tigers Are Not Afraid. HT, have you seen this?
My ears perked up when you mentioned Pan's Labyrinth, and everything you said just now sounds like it's a movie really made for me. I haven't seen it yet. I really want to. I don't have a Shudder account, but I might get a free trial just to watch this because it really sounds up my alley.
Yeah, this is if you have Shudder. Shudder's the $5 a month horror streaming service, and I almost feel bad this is being relegated there because it's not quite a horror movie. It is spooky, and there is a major plot line involving ghosts. So it's definitely not out of the realm of being horror adjacent. But I think that this is going to appeal to people who aren't necessarily horror fans. So this is Tigers Are Not Afraid. If it's playing by you and it still is in limited release, check it out. If not, sign up for that Shudder free trial and give it a stream. I also watched Haunt. This is the new film from Scott Beck and Brian Woods. They wrote A Quiet Place, and this was they pretty much used the power they got from A Quiet Place to write and direct Haunt. And to be clear, there's another horror film called Haunt out there that's terrible from a few years ago. So if you're looking for this one, this is the 2019 Haunt, and this is a rare horror movie where it really genuinely gets better as it goes along. I feel like so many horror movies peak early and peter out as they try to find a way to end, whereas Haunt starts off kind of weak and sloppy, but by 20 minutes in, I was invested, and by the end, I was really having a ton of fun with it. And with each reveal, it gets better and better. The gist is that a group of college students on Halloween go out to find a haunted house, find one in the middle of nowhere, the kind of extreme haunted house where you sign a waiver saying, like, I disavow anything that's about to happen to me. They go in and things start to go wrong immediately in the haunted house. They learn that maybe people running the haunted house don't have the best interests of their customers in mind. And like I said, get through the first 20 minutes, and I was ultimately really sold on this. There are some really nasty moments. There is a moment that had my wife like shriveling up and screaming on the couch. If you like your hands, you will not like some things that happen in this movie. But it escalates in ways I was not expecting. There are some big reveals, and it ends on a high note, which is something you can't say about most horror movies like this. Also, I'm just a sucker for movies where haunted houses go wrong, like Hellfest, The House in October Built, Hell House LLC. There's an entire subgenre of evil haunted house movies, and Haunt slides right into there. And this one's available for rental on iTunes on VOD. I think it's $5.99 on iTunes, which is how I saw it. But that's Haunt. I liked it a lot.
Brad, what have you been watching?
I finally got around to watching Ready or Not, which is a darkly comedic thriller that follows this family who owns a gaming dynasty that have this weird tradition that they have to have the person who enters their family in marriage plays a game in order to properly enter their family. But among the games are very, traditional things like backgammon and checkers. But then, there's one game that you probably don't want to play, and that's, of course, the game that the bride ends up drawing. And it's hide and seek, and the entire family has to hunt down the bride to try to kill her before dawn, or something terrible happens to this family's dynasty. This movie is like so much fun. It is an absolute blast. It's so bloody and twisted and just downright fantastic. It also stars Samara Weaving, who is Hugo Weaving's daughter, and she is outstanding in this movie. I hope to see her do so much more. She's already cast in the upcoming Bill and Ted Face the Music as either Bill or Ted's daughter. I can't remember which one. I hope it's Keanu Reeves, because that would be just kind of a fun coincidence. But yeah, so this movie is it's fantastic. It is so just twisted. The deaths are brutal. There's so many moments that make you cringe and so many moments that surprise. It's probably one of the most fun experiences I've had in the theater this year. If you haven't seen it, if you've been sitting on it, like, just head out to the theaters to check it out, because you'll have an absolute blast watching it.
Before you send us emails, listeners, Samara Weaving is Hugo Weaving's niece, not his daughter. I'm just going to point that out.
Oh, really? Oh.
Yeah.
Well, I'm stupid.
No, you just realize that she looks just like him, so it's an easy thing to assume.
I could have sworn we talked about this, like, in the Slack, and she was his daughter.
I assumed this too, but I looked it up, and I think I said like before the movie started to my wife, that's Hugo Weaving's daughter. And I looked up afterward. In fact, I was like, oh no, I was wrong. So
yeah, I told my girlfriend the same thing. So now I have to go tell her that I'm wrong about everything.
Ben, what have you been watching?
I had a chance to catch up with Hustlers, which is the new Jennifer Lopez, Constance Wu movie that is written and directed by Lorene Scafaria, and I liked it. I think my thoughts sort of mirror what HT said about it when she saw it recently, which is, I like it's very stylish, but it sort of felt like there may be like a little bit of something slightly missing for me. I didn't like flip for it like everybody seems to be. There are tons of like memeable and gifable moments, and it's a really good time at the movies. I think it's better than a lot of stuff that you're going to see in theaters this year probably, but it's still, I don't know. I just wouldn't call it like a transcendent movie. So maybe if you lower your expectations a little bit, then you'll have a better time. But it's performing pretty well, at the box office. And yeah, like I said, the performances are good, and I think Jennifer Lopez in particular like does some of the best work of her career in this movie. So it's a fun movie, and it sort of reminded me a lot of Wolf of Wall Street, just in the way that it's sort of laid out in its template and construction, but and like the stylistic elements as well. And apparently Scorsese was like considering directing this at one point. So yeah, it's in theaters right now. You can check that out if you choose. That's Hustlers. I also saw Anatomy of a Murder, which is a what year did this come out? 1959 movie that was produced and directed by Otto Preminger. And it stars Jimmy Stewart and Lee Remick and George C. Scott. And Jimmy Stewart plays a lawyer who basically takes the case of an army lieutenant whose wife was raped, and the lieutenant killed the person who raped her. And it's basically just a huge trial, like a law movie. It's like 2 hours and 40 minutes or something like that. It's very long, but it moves so quickly because the dialogue is so fast, and it seems like this is not like anything that, James Stewart he's famous for a lot of snappy dialogue and stuff like that in movies like The Philadelphia Story. But this seems, I was watching it on Turner Classic Movies, and they were saying afterwards that this is like the movie that he considered one of the biggest challenges of his career, because there's just so much dialogue to memorize. It's all people standing around and talking in a courtroom for the most part. And it's really riveting. I think Stewart in particular is really, really good in this movie. He's bright and charismatic and funny and like passionate and sort of fiery at times too. So if you've not seen this movie, I would recommend it. It is a little bit more straightforward than I was sort of hoping it would be, especially with a movie of that length. I was kind of hoping for like I'm not going to give away what happens in the movie or anything, but I was just hoping that it would have a little bit of extra punch to it, a little bit more narratively satisfying than what I found it to be. But has anybody else here seen Anatomy of a Murder by any chance?
I have, and it's great, and it has a really cool jazzy soundtrack.
Yes. Oh, thank you for reminding me of that. I meant to mention that Duke Ellington did the score, and I really loved the look of the movie paired with that jazz that is just going throughout most of not during the court proceedings really, but like every other part of the movie. It's basically playing out. It's just a lot of fun to listen to. It's very I don't know, it sort of centers you in a time and place, and I found it to be really effective. So that is Anatomy of a Murder. I watched it on Turner Classic Movies. I also watched The Witch, or the VVitch, Robert Eggers movie from 2015. I saw this for the first time on Netflix, so it's there right now. You can stream it if you like. I know that there are probably multiple people on this podcast that love this movie, so this may be a controversial opinion to just say that I appreciated it and kind of liked it but didn't love it.
I'm with you on this one, Ben. I know Jacob is just in love with this movie.
My heart is broken a little.
The first thing you see when you walk into my home is a poster of Black Phillip.
Oh my gosh.
So I don't really know what to say here, because I know that everything I say is being judged harshly by the rest of the staff, basically. But so look, I think Anya Taylor-Joy, who this was her like breakout performance, and I think this is the best work that I've seen her in so far. Ralph Ineson, who's a guy who has sort of been around in a lot of things, and he was in like Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, and he was in Guardians of the Galaxy and Kingsman: The Secret Service, playing
Game of Thrones and the British Office.
Right, yeah, but like the year before The Witch, he was playing Ravager pilot and policeman in those two movies, and then he plays the family patriarch William in The Witch, and he like blew me away. I thought he was really, really great, and it's just rare for me to see Ralph Ineson in like a substantial role like that. So I just wanted to give a quick shout out to him. But for me, the biggest drawback for this movie was I really liked the setting. I liked the world, the dialogue. I found to be really compelling. I just wish it was a little scarier. I wish there was more that happened in it, like more scares. And
Ben,
that may be like yeah, go ahead.
This movie opens with a woman grinding a baby up. What more do you need? It's like the first 10 minutes of the movie. There's literally a scene where a woman uses like a mortar and a pestle and grinds up baby goo and then covers her naked body in the baby goo. I don't know what more you need, Ben.
So I loved that, Chris. I thought that was horrifying and really chilling to watch. But then there's so much movie where nothing really super scary happens, and I just
look. In all seriousness, I love The Witch. I think it's one of my like all-time favorite horror movies. But I readily acknowledge that it's a very slow burn, and it's definitely not a movie for everyone. So I won't judge you too harshly, Ben.
The scary moments really worked for me. I just wish there were more of them, and that's really where I sort of come down on The Witch. Like I appreciated the experience. I love the craft and the artistry of the production. I just wish that it was like a little bit more scare heavy. So I don't know if what that says about me and my horror bona fides, which are not, I don't really have many, but or what that says about me as a horror fan or something.
Says you're a basic bitch, Ben.
Yeah, exactly. That's sort of what I was getting at. Yeah.
For me, it's not about it needs more scares. It just needs more to happen. Like it is so much of a slow burn, and I feel like it's too much of a slow burn for me.
It's that impending sense of dread though that makes it so good. Like it's a slow burn, sure, but there's just this uneasy and unsettling feeling throughout the entire movie that makes it like feel creepy the entire way through.
I think that helps it get under your skin a lot. And I think that paranoia really builds to whether it's actually happening or whether this is something that's all in your head. And I like that effect a lot.
Yeah, I agree. I wish that blanket of dread was a weighted blanket, that it had more pressure on me throughout the whole movie, because I felt it. I just wanted to feel it more throughout the whole thing. But okay, and I also saw One Cut of the Dead, which is a movie that I think Jacob and HT and maybe Chris, I don't know, a bunch of people have talked about it on the podcast before, so I'm not going to talk too much about it other than to say that it's really, really fun. It is written, directed, and edited by Shinichiro Ueda. I think I said that correctly. Basically the movie is a one-take indie zombie film for the first 37 minutes or so, and then something else happens, and I'm not going to say how the movie sort of plays out from there, but it appears to be very, very low budget and sort of I don't know, like shoddily thrown together at times when in the first 37 minutes when you're watching this little zombie movie, and then it opens up into something that recontextualizes what you've seen in a way that I found to be incredibly satisfying. This movie is in theaters right now in LA. I think they're actually doing one-night screenings across the country in like 60 theaters tonight, September 17th, 2019. So if you're listening to this and you want to see it in a theater, tonight sounds like the night to do it. So I don't know if you can like change your plans and make that happen, but I think you'll be pleased with the end result because this movie's a lot of fun. If you miss it tonight, it is coming to Shudder soon. So that is One Cut of the Dead, and I'm sure we're going to be talking more about this movie as the year goes on, where we can maybe dig into it a little bit deeper. And then finally, I watched Millennium Actress on HT's recommendation. She talked about this movie a lot on last week's Water Cooler episode, and wow, this movie is incredible. It's on Amazon Prime Video right now. I was just scrolling through this morning looking for something to watch, and I didn't even have it in my watch list yet. I just came across it, and I was like, oh yeah, this is that movie HT was talking about, and I just sort of watched it on a lark, and I'm so glad that I did. It is like one of the best animated movies. I'm having really good luck with animated movies this year. Castle of Cagliostro I loved, and this movie I think is right up there. HC, last week I think you referred to this as the Citizen Kane of anime movies. Is that right?
Yes, and I will stand by that statement.
I think I stand right there with you. It's like an incredible movie.
And by the way, Ben, you call it luck. I call it taking HT's recommendations.
Well, yeah, there's that too. Yeah, absolutely. Especially in this case, because wow, Satoshi Kon was the writer and director of this, and I mean, I'm hesitant to even say too much about it because I don't want to like set it up too much. And HT spoke so passionately about it last week that I couldn't even compete in that regard, especially coming off of a first viewing. But it reminded me a little bit of Your Name, which is an anime movie that sort of I don't know, like, I guess sparked my loose interest in the genre. I was like very opposed to all things anime for a long, long time, and HT spoke so highly about Your Name that I checked that out and found it to be this really sweeping love story that connected with me on an emotional level and was easily it easily surpassed any sort of aesthetic choices that I didn't love about anime as a whole. And this movie has that same yearning romance at the center of it, and I just found it to be so powerful. And HT talked a lot last week about the editing of the film, which is incredible. The story is about this young girl or basically it's about a retired actress who like revisits a bunch of elements of her life, a bunch of periods of her life through her movies and this documentary crew that are trying to interview her. And it's very impressionistic is the wrong word, but like surreal, I guess, where it sort of jumps through a bunch of her different films, and it's all about this like long-lasting love story that I just found to be so moving. So yeah, Millennium Actress is on Amazon Prime Video right now. I would recommend just diving in without knowing any more than that, and it's I found it to be very, very moving.
Ben, now that the gates have opened for you with anime films, I highly recommend you watching all of Satoshi Kon's other films. He hasn't directed a lot because he sadly passed away, I think in 2011 or 2007. I can't remember the exact date, but every film that he's made is just phenomenal. If you're looking for something more along the lines of Millennium Actress, something a little bit more optimistic, I recommend Tokyo Godfathers. It's a film that is definitely one of his happier ones and is kind of almost Frank Capra-esque. It's a Christmas movie, but it has some of that more seedy underbelly elements of his other films that kind of ground it in a way that's really interesting and really phenomenal. And of course, Perfect Blue and Paprika are also excellent. Perfect Blue is the one that I give a slight warning against because it is really harrowing to watch. But it is, every one of his films are just insanely amazing.
Yeah, it's going to be tough to beat this one, I think, because I think I started on the top because this is a really, really fantastic film. So yeah, highly, highly recommend Millennium Actress, which is on Amazon right now.
I hate that when you like find a new great director, but you find them at the peak of their work and you go explore like their other stuff and you're like, it was not as good as, not quite as good as that.
Chasing the dragon. You can never quite catch it.
Yeah. HT, what have you been watching this week?
I got to see It Chapter 2, which I actually quite liked. I came in with pretty low expectations because I'd heard so many mixed reviews of it, but I enjoyed a lot of it. I do think there were some elements of the horror being undercut by humor that took me out of a few of the scenes, but overall I thought that the almost 3-hour runtime didn't drag too much for me. I think that they were able to pack in all the story that they needed to, and I don't think that there was any moments that I felt like could have been totally cut. Maybe some things could have been sped up a little bit, but otherwise I enjoyed it. I do think that the adult cast doesn't have quite the same chemistry as the child cast, and whenever we cut to the child cast, I couldn't help but think what this film would have been like if it had been intercut with the first film and like interwoven the story in the way that Stephen King's book had. I hadn't read the book, so I don't know exactly how it plays out, but every time we went to a flashback, I just kind of got a little glimmer of what that movie would have been like, and I feel like it would have been a lot better. And not to say that this is a horrible movie per se, but I did like some of the campier moments that came in with the horror. But I do think that in dividing the two stories, it loses some of the elements I really liked about the first one, in that Pennywise itself acting as a sort of allegory for these kids' personal demons and their personal fears, and the idea of the town itself being kind of twisted and poisoned. I feel like some of that gets lost in this, which feels in It Chapter 2, which feels more like a kind of blockbuster climax in a way, a little bit divorced of the context, similar to how, when Deathly Hallows in Harry Potter, Deathly Hallows gets split into part 1 and part 2. Part 2 feels very much less just like a battle movie. This kind of feels like leading up to that fight without a lot of that emotional buildup. But I enjoyed it, and I will say, wasn't terrible. And I liked it quite a lot more than I thought I would.
Well, Andy Muschietti is going to be creating a supercut, which he hopes to film extra scenes and put scenes that were cut back in. So you're going to get your chance, HG, to see that. Although, Chris, has he said if that supercut is going to be an intercut, like between?
He has not clarified yet. He said they're still sort of like negotiating it, so we'll see.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see that version now, even though it is 4 hours.
I want to see that version, and then I want to see like someone like Topher Grace or someone like edit that down to like a 3-hour movie and see what that is like. It's probably not good, but I still want to see it. What else have you been watching, HD?
Another movie I watched is a film called Miss Purple, which is directed by Justin Chon and written by Chon and Kristen. And this is his follow-up film to his 2017 Sundance Darling. This is his 2017 is named after a racial slur, so forgive me if any of you guys are tuning in now. It's a film called Gook. And so this film, as opposed to his last film, is much less racially charged and much more contemplative. It follows a young woman named Casey who is taking care of her father, who is essentially on his deathbed. He's comatose. But after his caretaker leaves, she refuses to put him in hospice. And so she turns to her estranged brother, who reluctantly returns home to help take care of him. And it kind of becomes about these two siblings who are overcoming their traumas and the struggles of that first-generation immigrant life, and overcoming to the estranged relationship that they had with their dad when he was alive. And it's a very contemplative and thoughtful film, very much more gauzy and slow burning than his last film, but I really enjoyed it. It's beautifully shot, and with a wonderful performance by Tiffany Chu, who plays the main character, the titular Miss Purple. She's a newcomer and excellent in this role. And I highly recommend it. It's showing in select theaters in New York and LA now. But if you have the chance, please check it out. Justin Chon is a really promising rising Asian American director who I am excited to see the rest of his career. This is a really impressive, just kind of not second showing, but like newest showing from him. So I'm excited to see where he goes from here. Another movie I saw is a film called Chained for Life. And this is a film directed by Aaron Schimberg. It stars, actually, if you guys have seen Under the Skin, Adam Pearson, who was the disabled character who showed up in Under the Skin. He plays a lead role in this film. And it follows an actress who is shooting a sort of a low-budget exploitation film and struggles to connect with her disfigured co-star, played by Adam Pearson. And it's a very sort of surreal, almost send-up of exploitation films. It's a film within a film, essentially, in which the cuts between like the reality in which they're shooting the film and the film itself are pretty seamless, and you're not exactly sure what the reality is. And it kind of builds the relationship between these two characters throughout. And it is very low budget. but it's really well performed and a movie that I was very pleasantly surprised by. I went to see it because my friend actually was a productions assistant on this movie, so it was kind of a nice local film. But I was pleasantly surprised by this film and enjoyed it quite a bit. And I recommend it too if you are able to catch it in theaters. I think it just opened also in select theaters in New York and LA. A lot of these are not quite accessible to everyone, but if you can, please check them out. And then another movie I saw. So New York Film Festival is about to be underway. So the press and industry screenings have started this week. And the first movie I saw for the New York Film Festival press and industry screenings is a movie called Synonyms. It's a French-Israeli film directed by Nadav Lapid about a young Israeli man who's kind of trying to flee his homeland and his culture. And he goes to Paris and attempts to just kind of separate himself as much from his previous life as possible. And it's an interesting film. I can't say I know completely what to make of it. The best way I could describe it is that it's a very stoic film. Everything about it is is intentionally wooden and almost doll-like. The characters make choices that don't quite make sense, and a lot of the choices in this film I didn't quite understand either, but I liked all of them. It kind of gave you a sense of hyper reality that was really interesting to see, and kind of I'm still trying to unpack it, honestly, but I will say that the lead role, the lead performance by Tom Mercier is excellent, and he does an excellent job of playing this almost alien-like man who doesn't react to things in a way that you would expect a normal human being to react. And he is, it's just so, it's like an isolating performance that I think really speaks to that experience really well, that of being neither here nor there, a part of any culture. And my take on this film is something that I'm kind of working on now, is that it's about a man who is a radical but without any beliefs. So I think that's what this movie is going for, and I think it succeeds at doing, and is such a really fascinating character study itself. And I really enjoyed it. It's a very dreamlike film. I also recommend. I don't know when it'll be out in wide theaters. Right now, it's just making the film festival circuit. I think it debuted at the Berlin International Film Festival, where it got a lot of rave reviews. It's quite good. And that's another great film that I liked. And that's the last of the movies that I watched this week. The thing that I'm really excited about is the new season of Terrace House. You guys might have heard me raving about this Japanese reality show before on the water cooler. There is a new season out. It just dropped on Netflix this past weekend. Terrace House 2019 to 2020. Or Tokyo 2019 to 2020. They moved the show back to Tokyo. Last season was in Karizawa, which is a more rural area of Japan that was, I think, a couple miles out of Tokyo. But here they are back in Tokyo, leading up to the Tokyo 2020 Olympics. And I'm really excited about this season so far. And it might be my favorite opening cast of residents so far of the Terrace House seasons that are on Netflix. I am really enjoying it. I do wish that because this is a season leading up to the Tokyo Olympics, that they had some athletes on the cast, but there's a nice variety of people. There is an illustrator, an actor, an actress, a musician, a fitness trainer, and some kid who wants to be an actor but is kind of just like working as a part-time shop assistant right now. But they have really good chemistry so far, and I like that this season the focus is less on just the romances but also on the kind of the careers and sort of work struggles of these young 20-somethings, in one case, 30-something. And so I like that a lot. The illustrator in particular, Kaori, has a really great sort of heart to heart about how she's having basically imposter syndrome. And that was a really great conversation to see on Terrace House. This is just a great show, guys. Like how Chris loves his wholesome baking shows and competitions. Terrace House for me is just that wholesome, genial reality show in which nothing happens. It takes 12 episodes for someone to confess their feelings to each other. We haven't even had like a real kiss yet. We have had a kiss on this season, but it was in a scene in which someone was acting for a film that they were doing, a softcore porn film, actually. So that was really exciting to see. Yeah, it's such a genial, like amiable reality show. Something that feels both like a interesting culture study of how young Japanese people act in day-to-day life, but also in the reality without the drama. I mean, there is some drama, but all of it is kind of really mundane drama in a way that's so entertaining. There was an incident this episode, or this season, in which someone tried to cook carbonara, but they cooked it horribly wrong, and they just dropped an egg in the boiling water. So that was a great incident right there. Oh, I also have to say, the food this season is impeccable. One of my favorite things about Terrace House is that it's a really beautifully shot, minimally shot reality series, and they often focus on the backgrounds and the environments and often the food. And this season has been just off the charts. I think the roommates this season have been cooking a lot, so you see a lot of great food shots that look delicious and give you good recommendations for restaurants if you ever go to Tokyo. In fact, on YouTube, one of my favorite compilation videos of Terrace House is a compilation of just all the food shots on the show, and it's both the most calming and amazing compilation I've seen. It's great. Anyways, Terrace House. It's streaming on Netflix right now. The first 12 episodes of this season, Terrace House Tokyo 2019 to 2020, is now streaming.
See, next week on the water cooler, Ben's going to have binge watched his way through Terrace House because of HT's recommendation. No, I watched Terrace House like couple seasons ago, I think, when you and both you and Dan Trachtenberg, we had an episode where he was on talking about it, and
we raved about it for like a full 20 minutes, which you didn't record. I think that would have been a really fun conversation.
Oh, is that not ever published? Oh, I
don't think it was. Yeah.
I found it to be a little bit of a slow burn compared to American reality series.
Yeah.
But I'd be interested to hear what other people on this podcast think of Terrace House if you ever dip your toes in.
Well, I want to say one more thing.
Yeah.
One more great thing about Terrace House is that, in addition to being that slow burn, is that you don't have the traditional talking heads of like interviews that you have with the reality show in America, for example.
You have like commentators that are like at home watching it.
There's
it's weird.
There's a panel of like celebrities and comedians who every 15 minutes will just kind of pop up on the screen, and they're watching it with you, and we'll basically just break down every action that happened. Like someone brushed their fingers against someone else's arm, and they're like, what does that mean? And they go on about it for like 15 minutes, and it's great. It's like watching a show with people, with like your friends. And it's the closest equivalent I can think of is like an after show panel, like The Talking Dead, but actually inside the show itself. So that's kind of the fun of it. It gives you like a lot to talk about without anything much happening.
By the way, you've now put in my head that like I would like a version of the talking, like those like after shows that is how they do it, where they're like it's actually like an audio commentary for the episode instead of being what it is, which is a lame interview show. But okay, Chris, what have you been watching?
I don't know how to follow that. That was such a in-depth.
Sorry, I got too excited.
Yeah, mine will be a lot less exciting. As I said earlier, I went to TIFF. We did a whole TIFF podcast, so please go seek that out to hear me talk about good movies. Now that that's out of the way, I finally saw Men in Black International, which is, of course, the new Men in Black sequel / reboot. And oh my God, how is that movie so bad? I was legitimately shocked at how bad it was. Like, I wasn't expecting it to be good, but it's like offensively bad. Like I've never seen a film with so many talented people in it be so terrible. Like Chris Hemsworth and Tessa Thompson have proven time and time again they're both incredibly charismatic actors, but if this were the first time you had seen either of them in a film, you'd be like, wow, I hope these two never work again, because they're just so lifeless and the script is just terrible. It's probably like one of the worst studio movies I've like ever seen. I'm shocked this like somehow got released. It's that bad. Like, what the hell happened with this? I really don't understand. And then I saw Aladdin, the new Aladdin, and I gotta say, as far as these things go, these soulless corporate live action remakes of Disney films, this isn't that bad. I mean, it's okay.
They're gonna put this quote on the cover of the home video release, Chris.
Yes, I hope they do. Like, it's as far as things go, it's okay. I mean, Guy Ritchie does not know how to direct musical sequences, which is a problem because this is a full blown musical, and his idea for directing musical sequence is to literally just have the actors like walk around while lip syncing, and it's really not good. But beyond that, it's fine. It's entertaining. Will Smith is fine. The other actors are fine. Everyone is fine. This is a definition of a fine movie. It's nothing extraordinary. It's nothing mind blowing. But I don't know. Maybe because I went into this with like the lowest of low expectations, just because I'm so tired of these live action Disney films. I don't want to say impressed, but I liked it more than I thought I would. Like, I'll never watch it again, but for what it was fine.
It's also one of these movies that your expectations are so low. Like, you watch the trailer and you see Will Smith as Aladdin, and you're like, as Genie, and you're just expecting the worst. And
right.
He's not that bad.
He's probably like the best part of the movie. So yeah, I had watched the trailers. I'd been like, oh man, this is going to be a train wreck. And because it's not a train wreck, it sort of tricks you into thinking it's an okay movie. And it probably isn't. I'm sure like if I had never seen a trailer for this and I went in blind, I'd be like, oh, that sucked. But because I went in with zero expectations, I liked it more than I thought I would.
Okay, let's move on to what we've been eating. I was briefly back on my diet, but I'm now off diet again because I have a bunch of things happening this week that I just can't be on diet for. But I while on diet, I finally took Jacob's keto recommendation of eating ramen with no noodles, which sounds insane. And I did so at Puto Ramen, which is near my house. And I had some kind of like short rib ramen with no noodles and extra meat. And Jacob, it was incredible. Like, I don't know like why this isn't a thing that more people on the keto diet talk about, because like there's a healthy amount of fat content there. It's probably a little bit more calories than I want, but like it is a really nice filling meal.
Yeah, I think it's because most people associate ramen purely with noodles, when the flavors for me are everything else. So I don't miss the noodles. I really enjoy it.
Yeah, it's really good. So if you're looking to go low carb and stuff like that, I would say check out ramen, no noodles, extra meat. It might cost you a little extra, but it's worth it. Brad, what have you been eating this week?
Oh, just more wacky stuff. I got another Airheads Jones soda mix that is available only at 7-Eleven. 7-Eleven has this like deal with Jones Soda where they get these exclusive flavors every now and then. And one of them is this cherry pineapple burst flavor that comes from Airheads Paradise Blends edition of the candy that's like a chewy fruity taffy. And I had previously tried the Airheads mystery flavor one, which looked like dirty dishwater and tasted like, all the Airheads mixed together, which I think is what Mystery Airheads is. But this one's much better. It actually tastes very similar to the new Taco Bell Cherry Sunset pineapple slush that's available there now, because it has the same fruit flavors. The pop itself is actually a little bit sweeter I think just because of the Airheads influence, the Jones sodas are always very sugary, even more so than your average regular sodas from Coke and Pepsi. But the flavor's pretty good. So if you happen to be at a 7-Eleven, it's probably the better option of the exclusive flavors that 7-Eleven has from Jones Soda. And then I finally got a new cereal after there haven't really been a lot of new ones for a while. There's a new Captain Crunch flavor called Cotton Candy Crunch, which I'm not the biggest cotton candy fan, so I was like already fairly leery about it. The scent of cotton candy is actually much stronger than the flavor in the cereal itself. If you have it dry, it doesn't taste much different from regular Crunch Berries that you get either in the Captain Crunch Berries or the Oops All Berries cereal. There is a hint of cotton candy like aftertaste, but it's not overwhelming. So you're really just getting a slight cotton candy flavor as opposed to one where a cereal tastes exactly like cotton candy. And having it in the milk didn't really do anything different. I was kind of expecting the milk to maybe taste a little bit more like cotton candy after the cereal sat for a little while, but that was not the case. It's like I said, it's pretty much just standard Crunch Berry cereal with a dusting of cotton candy flavor.
Yeah. Cotton candy is like trending now. How does like food become trending? Like, do you know what I mean? Like how like a couple years ago, the whole pumpkin spice trend started, but now like cotton candy is like, is it because of like the whole Starbucks unicorn kind of thing?
I think so. We talked about this before too, because like every now and then it seems like there's some kind of flavor trend that's happening, and I wonder if it's just because like some company that creates artificial flavors has figured out how to create it in a way that makes it easy to use on chips or cookies or whatever it is, and so suddenly everyone does it. Some of the flavors are obviously seasonally inspired, yeah. But yeah, there's it seems like every now and then there's like a big trend of everyone's trying to add a certain flavor to their snacks.
If we get cotton candy Oreos, then we'll know that must be it.
See, there you go.
Okay, lastly, I wanted to give a shout-out to a new app I've been using. I've been doing a lot of video editing for this vlog channel, Ordinary Adventures, linked in the show notes. And I do so on my 15-inch MacBook Pro. And I was saying to a friend who's an editor, my friend Jeff, I was like, I'm thinking about getting like an external monitor because I need more room for like this editing workflow. And he was like, you don't need an external monitor. Do you have an iPad? And I do have an iPad. He recommended this app called Duet, and this isn't an ad or anything. This is something I've been using lately. But you download this app called Duet. I think it's like $10 right now, and you hook your iPad. I think you could do it through Wi-Fi, but I hooked my iPad up through the lightning cable to my laptop, and you basically can set your iPad next to your laptop and use it as a second screen, and it's pretty much lag-free. It's a very, 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 very slight. But I've been using it, and I've now been using it outside of editing. I keep my we have a Slack channel for Slash Film purposes, and I keep that like in the extra monitor, so I have extra room on my desktop now. So I highly recommend if you have an iPad. I'm not sure if it works on like the really older iPads, but if you have an iPad in the last few years, it probably works on that. It's an app called Duet. Okay. That brings us to the end of today's Slash Film Daily. You can find more of all of our work at slashfilm.com. You can find this podcast published every weekday on iTunes, Google, Overcast, Spotify. Send us your feedback. Send us your questions, comments, concerns to peter@slashfilm.com. And please rate and review this podcast on iTunes. Tell your friends. Spread the word. And we will see you tomorrow.
Hey, Peter.
Yes, Jacob.
I just want to say that I've been hearing what people have to say about this joke book, and they've all been very encouraging and telling me I should keep doing it forever.
Wait, who are these people?
All the readers, all the listeners, they all appreciate the gargantuan book of insult, offense, and effrontery by Louis A. Sapien. But I'll make you a deal, Peter. If 10 people email in and say, stop the joke book forever, I'll stop the joke book forever. But if 10 people email in and say, keep the joke book forever, then I'll keep it forever. So it's up to you, listeners.
Oh, no.
Do we keep the joke book segment going or not? Anyway, I've opened up to the cranks section, Peter. Do you want to hear about how you're all cranks?
We don't have a choice.
Do I?
I was going to say, do we have a choice? Jacob.
Well, Peter, the last time you were in a hospital, you got get well cards from the nurses.
They want you to get out quickly, Peter.
I get it.
Well, one time, Ben, he was sick in bed for a week, and his secretary sent a sympathy card to his wife.
Ben, you have a secretary?
I mean, don't you? Slashfilm pays for mine.
Shit.
Well, HT, she's always willing to face the music, so long as she can call the tune.
Aha.
All right, here's the best one ever. This one makes perfect sense. Chris, he can become very unpleasant once you get to know him. No spelled N-O.
Ah, yes.
Oh.
Thank you.
Wait, that actually fits perfectly.
And finally, Brad, his liver is out of order, and his opinions are the same.
Oh boy.
This whole podcast is out of order.
So if you enjoyed this high-quality content, you should email Peter and let him know to keep it. If you did not enjoy it, you can email Peter and let him know to drop it. It's in your hands, listeners.
Oh.